and then what they want to leave, as a legacy for inheritance. And so was always looking long term. And then I saw something coming for our nation that, quite frankly, is still extremely worrisome. And that is that really almost 99% of our population is just not going to make it, in retirement. They're going to fall way short on their funding. A lot of it is lack of education. A lot of it is misinformation. And I saw the potential for a particular product to come along and be that extra help, that extra leg in the retirement plan. And since then, it's really evolved to where now we're looking at something that can benefit not just those that might run out of money, but even some of the more affluent investors, those that all the way up to maybe 2 million investable can benefit from this.
I know, because one of the segments earlier, I said I learned all of this from you, but I went through a little bit of the history of why we have this stigma when it comes to reverse mortgages.
Right.
So I went through a little of that. I did not get into the fact, though, that it really is not for a last resort or that kind of thing.
Right. The product we have today was not designed for the last resort client. And yet that's how most people still think of it and want to use it. As a matter of fact, when Congress instructed HUD to develop the HECM product, the home equity conversion mortgage, the word reverse mortgage wasn't even in the instructions, right? It was to help late in retirement with, quite frankly, it was a very long sentence that basically said that compounding inflation is going to get most people in the end, right? We all think and know that as we move into retirement, the things are going to get more expensive as we age, but generally the population isn't really aware of how expensive those things are going to get. When you're compounding inflation at 3% over 20, maybe even 30 years, it's almost scary when you consider what the cost of living is going to be late in retirement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a very limited memory when it comes to what we want to remember.
Right.
Like I was talking to a friend today, I said, I don't remember what happened yesterday. I do remember being in the crib, but I don't remember what happened yesterday. I do, however, remember when having a great income might have been $20,000 and buying a great home might have been $25,000.
Right.
Things have really changed.
Sure. We joke about the price of milk, decades ago, or the price of gasoline decades ago, and then think that escalation isn't going to continue. Well, it just naturally does. In 20, 30 years from now, we'll joke about the price of those things, what they were today.
Well, I'd like to be around to do that, but we'll see. We will see. I'm going to try.
I'm sure you will.
All right. You're okay. You know that? Yeah, you do know that. You must know that. So, yeah, it's just confounding how we have to, but let's go. I mean, the way you go at it is not, here's something we have to overcome the stigma. You go at it like, here is the real truth, and here is why you need to make this a part of what you, a financial planner, discusses with your clients. Because I think all of our listeners, whether they have a financial planner or not, and I do think we all should, I mean, the same thing goes for them. They need to learn also why it's so good for them financially, regardless of what their situation is today.
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's been a lot of research done the last several years on the right way to use a reverse mortgage in a financial plan. A lot of academics have gotten involved. Colleges like Texas Tech, the American College of Financial Planning, a number of very well-noted PhDs have taken a hard look at this product and proven out mathematically there are 4 or 5 really sound areas that just about everyone should look at when it comes to whether or not they should integrate home equity into their financial plan.
Right. And just because it's integrated doesn't mean they're using it.
Right.
It means they have more choices.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, the reality is, and I'm going to kind of lean in our conversation today towards the more affluent user.
That's
but
great.
but but before we get dive and permanently stay there, I would like to say that we're hoping for research in the near future that lays out something we already know about what happens to millions of Americans, millions of American homeowners in retirement. And what that is they end up unintentionally spending 100% of their home equity on long-term care.
Yeah, 100% of their equity on home-term care. I mean, that's if they sell it, what's going to happen in a few years? Fine,
right.
But in a few years they have more decisions to make and not very many choices.
Right. Well, what happens to millions of Americans, it's a very gradual process, and it's why we don't have really sound studies on this yet, but I think we will very soon. But what happens to millions of them is they reach a point in retirement where they need some help, just a little bit of help, right? So they hire an in-home care service. There's a plethora of them out there, and they typically range, depending on where you are in the country, somewhere between $20 and $35 an hour.
Right.
And if they only need a couple of hours help a week, it's not that big of a deal, right? It could be $60, $100, weekly, something like that. For a lot of seniors, that's not a big deal. But as they age, they need a little more help and a little more help and a little more help. And eventually, 10, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week. My own aunt is 24 hours a day in home care.
Wow. Yeah.
It starts to be extremely expensive and they can't afford it anymore. So what they do is they sell their home and move into an assisted living facility, which burns through 100% of that cash typically in just 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
So they initially had planned on passing the home on to an heir, ideally, most of them, but end up, because of the lack of planning, lack of understanding of how these things really work, end up spending 100% of it on care. And there's a variety of better options than that. One of which is, if you think about it early enough, and I equate long-term care funding to college planning. It's very similar, actually.
I know, and people, when they're young, they have college planning as part of their financial planning, whether they have a professional or not. It's part of their plan.
Right. It's much easier if you put money in a 529, for example, when the baby is born. Odds are you're going to have all you're going to need to pay for college, right? If you just put a couple $1,000s in a 529 plan. But if you wait until their junior year of high school, right, it's too late. And that's what we tend to do with long-term care funding also, is we wait until it's too late. But if in your 50s or 60s, or ideally right at 62, 62, what we call our reverse mortgage birthday, when all of a sudden they're eligible, right? If you were to take just a portion of home equity and put that into a single premium long-term care policy, right, fully funded, one premium, not ongoing premiums.
Yeah.
That money typically gets leveraged for 3.5 to 4.5 times into care benefit, and then all of a sudden those care needs are taken care of. But and I don't want to stay on long-term care for the whole conversation, but the problem is 70% of our population falsely believes that their medical insurance, their medical insurance will pay for long-term care, and it doesn't do it. And that in lies, probably one of the huge problems facing our country as the boomers move into late retirement. It's going to be $1 trillion problem.
Yeah. Wow. I think that the single largest reason for anyone to lose their legacy or to lose their estate is healthcare and paying for it.
Sure, absolutely. So to get to the topic I know you really wanted me to spend some time on is how can this apply, and when is it really right for the little bit more affluent investor, right? We're talking about people with anywhere between $500,000 to $2 million investable. If they've met and had lots of time with their financial advisor, they've learned that most advisors have a process right? Where they identify your goals, they see what your expected lifestyle is to be in retirement. They build a plan around that and around your life expectancy, right? And then once they identify how much money they have to work with, they take a couple of steps so that they're not taking on too much risk, right? They will do something called asset allocation, right? Just it's a fundamental. If a financial advisor isn't looking at asset allocation, they might be breaching their responsibilities, right? It's that fundamental. And that's where you split things up into cash, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, right? You don't just put everything into stocks. You have some bonds, you have some mutual funds, you split that up. Then the other thing they do to reduce risk and still have the same gains is what we call diversification, right? And when we diversify that portfolio, now we're going to split up those assets. We're going to split up the stocks, and we're going to split those into maybe domestic and international. We're going to split the bonds into municipal and corporate. And so we're just going to keep splitting things out, reducing our risk, but maintaining our gains. Well, now there's a third layer that can be applied to almost anybody's financial plan, and that's called a withdrawal strategy, okay? How you take your money out when it comes time to start taking it out. And if you aren't doing this withdrawal strategy, quite literally, you may be taking on more risk than you should. So the way the withdrawal strategy works is it looks a little more long-term, and it simply says that if you can set up another income source, then when the markets dip down, rather than continue to draw your income from your portfolio during the rebound phase, right? Because every down market has a rebound, right? You can look at the markets for 200 years and they may have a big sell-off and they always come back. We are at 27,000 as of yesterday on the Dow, biggest it's ever been in history, and we have had some major calamities along the way, which means it always comes back, right? But if you're still drawing income on your portfolio as it's trying to rebound, it took that dip with the market, and then you're still taking out income as it's trying to rebound. It's like swimming upstream, right? It makes it harder for it to rebound. But if you leave the portfolio alone on those rebound years and don't draw any income, well, then it rebounds much faster, significantly faster. So then the question becomes, where do I get this other income source to live off of when I'm leaving my portfolio alone for a year? And for most people, they can't just pull an income source out of the air, but if you have a home, you can. And it's called a reverse mortgage, right? Yeah. A mortgage that doesn't require a monthly payment, and you can live off of that for that year, leave your portfolio to rebound faster. And we've found over tens of thousands of Monte Carlo simulations hitting this strategy with every possible type of market scenario, that it doesn't just help a little bit, it helps a lot. It can be the difference between running out of money in your 80s and leaving a substantial portfolio to your heirs. So it's not a little bit of a help, it's a layer that, unlike those other two strategies, asset allocation and diversification, that maintain gains and lower risk, this actually increases the chance of having greater gains and lowering risk at the same time. So if this isn't something your financial advisor has talked to you about yet, don't get mad at them. It's just that it's a new strategy. It was just discovered in the last couple of years, and they need to get educated on it, and we provide that education.
Which is so important. The education is great for financial advisors because so many people go to them. And it's also great for the rest of us, with or without a financial advisor. Because everything you're saying goes one way or another to all of us. Whether we have a large portfolio, a little one, or maybe we don't have one at all the principles that you're talking about, there's such a thing as trickle-down economics. I'm not sure how well that works, but we have trickle-down knowledge here also.
Sure.
That really works for those with a $6 million home and those with a $200,000 home. It's all relative. Somebody in some other Midwestern state could have a home worth $500,000, and it could be so much bigger and better than a $3 million home out here. Everything in life is relative, except I'm not relatively good looking. But, all of these principles really, really count. A lot of, the last application I took was yesterday. That was a $2 million home in La Cañada. But I've visited several others out here close, and one was a $6 million home. No heirs, so that wasn't a real problem, although I don't think that heirs should be a problem because, you can lose your home to healthcare and leave your heirs so much less, not more. But he didn't have healthcare. He wanted one of those insurance products that you talked about. And he wanted to be able to live in that house and have the view he has even after he gets sick. Oh, Dennis. How do you like that? Dennis is saying hello. You know Dennis, right? Both of you look alike now with those with those beards.
Yeah. Have you had your macaroni and cheese today, Jay?
Not yet, but boy, I'm going to.
Okay. I had a question for our dear friend Phil. How would the approach be for a CPA versus a financial planner, Phil? Or would it be about the same approach, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because, more people have tax professionals in their life than they do financial advisors. And so they end up going to that person a lot for that type of advice. And although they may not be, as in tune with, investment picking, they definitely understand tax advantages, and they definitely understand, trying to retain your income. And so when they see this strategy laid out, as we do it in our webinars, they get it right away. So I would have them, quite frankly, call in and listen to the professionals here. Jay understands it very well.
Thank you. I try.
And I would approach them actually the same way as a financial advisor.
Thank you. And thanks again, Phil, on there. I appreciate our meeting in Visalia for 2 hours. That was really incredible.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll let some other people talk or ask questions, but thanks again for your mentorship. Jay's been a mentor for me for like 15, 16 years, so I appreciate that help from everybody.
Glad we appreciate you too. You know that. So go get them.
Jay, I would say for the listeners that, if they are concerned at all about running out of money before their life expectancy, they have got to investigate this strategy, and have their advisor look at it. If they are pretty comfortable and they think that they'll be able to maintain their lifestyle throughout retirement, but maybe they would like to give themselves a raise and actually increase their lifestyle in retirement, that is something this can also do. And if they want to leave a bigger legacy at the end to heirs, or give more away in philanthropy and give back to the world, this strategy has something for all of those people. And it's they don't make any changes to their portfolio or to their plan. They just layer on this withdrawal strategy, just like they already layered on asset allocation and layered on diversification.
Yeah, and even one more thing, even people who think they will never have a problem. I was in that boat at one time.
Sure.
And yes, if you can imagine me in a boat, I would probably sink it or it would go off to one side. But I really had more money than I thought I could ever spend. And it wasn't that I spent it. It wasn't even because of bad investments. It's a longer story than that. But things changed for me. Life is a roller coaster. And, you can take it on and enjoy it, actually, for being a roller coaster. But no matter how secure you think you may be, there's always that black swan floating around.
Sure. Yeah, we saw that in 2008. We even saw it overseas. Out of nowhere, you had the Japanese tsunami that affected world markets. Quite literally, we saw an indication, and I think in our lifetime we'll see this one at some point, where a volcano will impact world markets. You had one in Iceland a few years ago that interrupted air travel in Europe for an entire month. Well, there are much bigger volcanoes there that could interrupt air travel for a lot longer, and so you've got to have more than enough, right? You got to have enough to get by, and then enough for those occasional, like you like to say, black swans that eventually come around. And one that's going to hit a lot of people is this misperception about long-term care funding. I want to leave everybody on that topic with one thought. There is a 70% chance you will need some form of long-term care.
Right. That doesn't mean you're going in there and ending there. It means you're going to be in and out or in there, or it's going to happen.
Right. 70% chance. The only thing more likely to happen in your lifetime is death. So
think about that. Okay.
If this is the second greatest chance of something happening, you should make plans for it, right? You have hazard insurance for your house in case it burns down, but there's only a 1 in 1,200 chance that would ever happen.
Right. I remember.
Right, but yet you have insurance for it, right? We could go on and on about the comparisons of the things we plan for that are so rare.
Yeah, like car insurance.
Exactly.
So if you take all the money since you started driving, all the money you've given to the auto insurance company you use, and take back what they've given you back, look what a big number you've given them.
That would be huge, sure.
So that makes all this other stuff inexpensive, if not just plain cheap.
So if you don't have a plan for your own long-term care funding, you need to get one. Okay, that's what you need to know. Medicare, by the way, that's where part of the confusion comes in. Medicare sometimes will pay for it temporarily. It has to follow a long-term hospital stay, which is at least 3 full days. If they kick you out an hour before 3 days, they're not going to provide funding. It's 100% for 20 days and then trickles down to nothing after 100 days. So even if Medicare pays for a nursing home stay temporarily, understand it's very temporary, and at some point they go away, completely. So everyone needs to make those plans, and the sooner you make them, the less costly it'll be.
That's absolutely for sure. Being prepared, like the Boy Scouts once said, I think.
I was one.
Hey, for you. Be prepared. That's all this is. It's insurance against, and the cheapest insurance you'll ever get, for your future, for anybody's future. That's the way I kind of look at it. I don't want to be too pushy about it, but it's so necessary. It's not what so many people actually kind of think about it.
And that's the way to think about this withdrawal strategy, is it's insurance against down markets, right? And it's so simple to do. It is so very, very simple to do.
Right.
I would also remind everyone that there are still other very well-documented strategies for this product, like delaying Social Security, right? Don't grab Social Security too early, because it will cost you a lot of money. Wait until 67 if you can. And a reverse mortgage could supplement you until that day comes, and then you permanently grab Social Security at a higher benefit amount. There's also what I like to call the right size and downsize strategy.
And what size am I? Let me see. Oh, it's a good thing. It's only my face on here.
Jay, you're always the right size.
And it's always only half lit, so that helps make me look smaller.
There you go.
Let me show the other side real quick there, but I'll get rid of it. Okay. I do need a wide angle lens.
The downsize and right size strategy is, if you're looking to relocate and downsize your home, maybe you're going to just get something more manageable, or you're going to move somewhere to get closer to grandchildren, that may be an opportunity to make some corrections in your retirement plan. So what most seniors do, and I've talked to countless number of senior community home builders about this over the years, is the typical senior will sell their home, and let's say they net $500,000 on that home, and then they will pay cash for the new home so they won't have a mortgage payment. Well, that's great. That's very good planning. But if you might have a shortfall coming up in your retirement plan, a better option might be to just put $250,000 down on that new house, use a reverse mortgage for the other half, still have no mortgage payment, but then you freed up $250,000 to make adjustments to your retirement plan so you don't run out of money down the road.
Yeah, and even people like, not the super rich or just the in-between kind of people that maybe want to go buy a motorhome, okay? Where's their money? Most of their money is in a qualified account, or it's in an account from which if they pulled in a retirement account, let's say, and if you pull money out of that retirement account, you are paying a lot of tax money, which is chunk. I don't want to say how much, 1.5 times what you probably need.
You're looking at a 10% penalty right off the gate.
Yeah. And more important even than that, in my mind, is the fact that those dollars are not still working for creating continuing income. You've put an end to that. Whereas instead, you can buy that motorhome without having to use taxable income, pay cash for it. There's no payment on it. Yes, you owe now a bit more on your home, but remember, your home is increasing. It's a still increasing asset. So 5, 10, 15 years from now, everything is much, much different. You've had a nice motorhome to roll around in, and you have more. And then if healthcare comes in, you know what? You really need more money. It's either there, or guess what? You can sell a motorhome. You don't have to sell your own home.
Right, exactly. As a matter of fact, in that scenario, if you can afford a motorhome payment, you may still want to do it with a reverse mortgage instead and just pay it back. Make those monthly payments to your reverse mortgage. Yeah. You can do that without a penalty, and it actually increases your available credit line for later on. Yeah, it's that unused portion. The larger the unused portion of your line, the more it grows. If you have the HECM.
Yeah, I have a HECM, which I recommend everybody do, but that's up to them. But I make payments most of the time. Why? Because I want the line of credit to grow. And, I can put it into an investment here, there, or whatever, and I'm not saying not to, but I have a specific use down the road for a specific amount of money. And the only way I know I can grow my spending power is that. Put it into the house, because every single penny, every single penny goes to, 1 minute. Every single penny increases that line of credit, and of course the principal part also increases your equity.
Yeah, Jay, I'll leave your audience with this. We've done a lot of research for many years now on this, and as a former financial advisor, I can tell you that if you're considering liquidating your portfolio to buy something, almost 100% of the time, it's better to do it with a reverse mortgage, because like you said, you're limiting your ability to generate income. A business owner would not sell off part of their business to buy something, because then they've sold off part of their permanent income, right? Right. And when you are retired, you are in the business of retirement.
Bill, thank you so much. You've been great. I hope to have you again. I won't bug you till Monday, but I probably will then. So have yourself a great weekend, and thanks so much. And Sean, thank you too. And all the listeners, couldn't do it without you. Take care of yourself. Have a great weekend.